It sure is a funky week to be having this gathering. I'm so glad that we are, though. Um, Talking a lot in the group and in private groups and in the masterminds about the energies that are really bringing us into alignment this week as we lead into the new moon and the eclipse and the equinox. And I was just posting yesterday about how much energy and how much movement there is, and how it will be so easy to be sucked into drama or emotions, or, well, emotions, are good, but negative emotions or old stories or perceptions of negativity. And this guiding principle for this week of trying to use loving detachment and awareness and trust, and really see what is being brought up for us through these energies. So where do we have an opportunity to better align? Where do we have a call to maybe do some pruning, some cleaning house, some shedding, but then also in doing so, come out the other side better aligned. So I'm on the way to work this morning, and I end up behind a truck. It's going very, very slowly, which was great, reminding me, slow down, take your time. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had locked myself out of my office. So I didn't have my key, and I wasn't able to get in. I had a mastermind mastery session that was going to be online at 10 o'clock. But this truck that was driving so slowly in front of me had a license plate, and it said, Laugh Mo. Laugh, L-A-U-G-H, Mo. I'm going to pull up the picture. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's probably too far away. But it was such a good reminder for today. Oh, yeah, it's too fuzzy. There's a picture. I snapped it out the front of my windshield of this beautiful blessing and reminder from the universe this week that even with these big, intense energies and all this call to simplify, possibly pare down, to reduce, to clear, along the way, we can do that from a place of empowerment and maybe even fun and laughter. So taking this license plate, making it my wallpaper for today, I think. We also had the leprechauns in the house this morning. So they upset the paint table and left green footprints all over the place. So that was also a good reminder on this St. Patrick's Day to let in the fun and let in the play and let in the magic, and be in that realm with the kids for a little bit today. So welcome everyone to the March Mystic Salon. This is a month where we're talking about intuition and divination. I see Susan is here. Susan, that's amazing. Welcome. So great to see you. And I'm very excited that we're going to be bringing in Natalie Vartanian, who is a friend and a bright light in the space of creating new paradigm ways to interact with tarot and love, and this merging of these two incredible resources we have at our disposal, the heart and how it guides us forward, and her own magic alchemy of Terrascope. So many reasons I'm excited to welcome Natalie today, and we'll do that in just a few moments. I'm going to bring up my desktop so I can bring us into some slides. When I do this, I can't see your comments and whatnot. So we have Evergreen with us today behind the scenes, helping with the Mystic Salon. So she can always message me and text me as well. So welcome again. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking intuition and divination. Natalie is joining us. Natalie and I have been connected now for a while, and I follow her work personally, and I love it dearly. She's been a supporter of the Mystics and brought her beautiful energy and light into the Mystic Society, and so I'm so thrilled that she's here with us today. As you know, Mystic Society is a business and life alchemy group, really looking at bringing up a reflection for all of us about what are we really here to do, that it's beyond this concept of simply showing up for our jobs or for what we might feel that we have signed up for, that we're actually responding to a heart call, that we're bringing ourselves into alignment in terms of how we make money in the world. And it is, as you know, a passion of mine to shine the light on this topic of bringing economic flow and money and balance into the healing arts and the intuitive arts, and this space of of New Paradigm journeying. So this is a little overview of the first 6 months of the Mystic Society. We are now, as I mentioned in March, intuition and divination. Next month we'll be talking sacred spaces and sacred arts. In May, Beauty Way and the Divine Feminine, and in June, Money and Sacred Commerce. January and February's content is in the Sinclair group, so you can always access that at any time, and then of course also access the community and the conversations in the Facebook group. So in terms of our agenda for today, we're really just going to do a quick introduction here, and we're going to get right into our conversation with Natalie. We still have Allie's name up here, but with Natalie Vartanian. And first I just wanted to again, introduce myself. You know who I am. If you want to hear more about the energies that came into being to bring the Mystic Society forward and bring my businesses forward, last month's Mystic Salon has a lot more in-depth discussion of this element of how we came to be where we are right now, and you can go find that recording. So I just want to move through this component quickly and presence that, yes, right now you're at the Mystic Salon, which is part of the Mystic Society. I receive a lot of questions when I mention the mastery or the mastermind about what that is. Those are smaller circles that I run just once or twice a year. And this Mystic Society is a broader community where we can all come together and share not only what's in the field in terms of themes and topics, but also hopefully really offer reflections and support to one another and how we're doing this in the world. I'm so grateful for the comments and the shares in the Facebook group that help illuminate how each of us in our own way is bringing forth the alchemy and the magic and this new paradigm journey in whatever context it might be, in the healing arts, in nonprofit work, in organizational work. We have members who are working in oil and gas, all the way to education, all the way to healing and intuitive arts that I mentioned. So it's a wonderful thing that we can share our own practices and share what's alive for us and how we're using this work to inform how we as individuals walk in the world, but also how we influence those around us. So we've talked about the Mystic Society as part mentorship, part community, part program. It's really, again, an invitation to join in whatever feels right for you. So on the topic specifically of intuition and divination, so we define them in the Sinclair group. We obviously talked about, how we access our intuition, how we move into the space of exchange of information, the inquiry and the listening and the answers from the universe. But I got a really great question about, well, is that really woo-woo? Is that too out there? And I thought it was a good question to ask. So I started asking around. I asked my mother-in-law who's in police services and homicide and said, what role does intuition play for you? Is that really a word that's too out there? And it was an interesting reflection I got from various people. From her specifically, she was like, oh no, I don't, we don't use intuition at all. But then once I teased out a little more information, it was like her language was gut instinct. Well, you gotta be able to listen to your gut. And so I was able to then go into that space of listening and deep listening to tease a bit out even further. What is the difference between this language of listening to your gut versus listening to your intuition? And are they different? And how can we expand the conversation so that we're more inclusive and including all of these different ways in which we connect to our body language, our internal language, our higher guides? I think the thing that it comes down to for me is that ultimately, it's the process formerly known as decision making. Like, how do you make decisions? And we need to make decisions, big and small, all times, individual decisions about our own self-care and health, decisions for the collective, whether that's our family or our business, decisions in our business. And so the question is, how do we go about making those decisions? And I think the reason that I get so excited about intuition and divination from that place of decision making and bring it forward as an important topic for, new paradigm life and business alchemy, is because decision making becomes such an artful, graceful, fun, light process as you build your own muscle around listening to your intuition, tapping into the way that your intuition talks and speaks through you, the way that you receive guidance from reflections that some you might perceive as external to you, whether that's from your environment or from your spiritual communal time, your meditation. And then how can you even take it a step further into these arts of divination? So I'm really excited to hear Natalie's take on these definitions as well. But for me, it boils down to how can we make decision making more in alignment, more delightful. There's nothing that feels quite as good as making a big decision from a place of total clarity. Even the edgiest decisions, when we are confident that we are clear on the steps, that we have no doubt that we should do it, then we even detach from the holding on to the results out the other side. We get into this space of softening and trust because we're so clear that regardless of the outcome, it was the right next step. So that's part of why I'm passionate about this topic and excited to bring it forward, because I want that for myself in my own life and business, but for everyone to be moving more and more into that space of clarity, of connection, of asking and receiving answers, and then also leaning into the trust of knowing when not to make a decision because maybe the time isn't right or it isn't clear. And the more familiar we get with our own guides and our own relationship to inquiry and answer, the more comfortable we get with putting a decision on pause as well. So I guess I covered that one from the sense of why I feel like this is such an important topic, why I'm so excited to be spending the March Salon focused on this topic, and I'm so thankful for all of you for joining us. So from that space of gratitude, I want to bring us back onto camera. Let's see if I can do that. Here we go. There we go. And I would love to bring Natalie onto camera as well, if we can do that. Okay, it's coming up now. Natalie, you'll be with us in just a second. Let's see. So while she's joining us, I see that we now have grown our circle, and I want to, from this place with Natalie now on screen with me, bring us all into kind of a oneness of mind. And one of the ways, hi Natalie, one of the ways that we do this in the Mystic Society, we do it through a gratitude practice and something that's kind of an adaptation of something called the Thanksgiving Address. And so for the purpose of today and for this broader group, I just want to anchor into that energy by extending my gratitude to the four directions and how they presented themselves to me just this morning, even on my walk up to the top of the hill, how the sun which was already up this morning, I was up there a little later, how it comes up and it reminds us that even without having to do anything or refer to a to-do list or follow through on a strategy, that sun comes up each morning following its own original instructions and reminds us of the cycles and the newness and the beginning again and this beautiful opportunity each day to align ourselves. And then the South, which to me holds this energy of where we get things done and we move forward towards that alignment. But I also, with the license plate I presenced earlier, I'm feeling that energy of the South, which reminds us that we can walk that energy forward from a place of fun and lightness and play and love. So I'm grateful to the South for that reminder today. I'm grateful to the West. As I walk back to the house, I'm always heading into the West. So what I often see in that early morning time is the reflection and the light that comes on that side of the hill from the rising sun, and the importance of remembering the reflection, the gratitude practice, the remembering those who have gone before me and might be offering me insights or guidance on my own journey. So gratitude and thanks to the West, and also gratitude and thanks to the North, which I think of as this place of potential and this North Star, this thing that guides us forward to our divine purpose and path. And I'm going to stop there today with the cardinal directions, really anchoring that energy of gratitude and thanks for all these forces seen and unseen. I know that we're talking a lot about this big energy of this week, and I just want to really invite you all to sink into the space that you're in now, possibly set aside anything else that you might have that would be competing for your attention, and trust that we can kind of ride these intense waves of alignment from a place of self-care, of connecting into a space like this where we're going to talk about some really fun tools for accessing your own alignment and creating space for ourselves. So welcome, and again, thanks everyone for joining us. And Natalie, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you for that. I just, as you were talking, and can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Just even as you were talking about that, I felt way more relaxed and grounded because, like you said, this week has just been a lot of energy, and I found myself just having to just get back to nature, just even sitting outside and looking at the palm tree and just watching the wind go through the leaves and looking at the cats walking around and thinking, wow, they just chill. They just rest and lay down and purr and simple things, just want to be pet. And it's nice to remember that, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of reflections right now for us about doing exactly that. Even though it feels very frenetic, it's a perfect time to identify what you can simplify, look for what's really important, set down any of the other things that feel extraneous, and find that time to lay, be, purr, receive love.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny, too, because we have, so my boyfriend moved in 2 months ago, and he brought his 2 cats. I call them kitties, but they're 7, 8 years old, far from being kittens. But their personalities are so different. They're brother and sister. And one's personality is that of just being a total lover. He will come to you like a dog. He'll just, pet me, love me. And I was saying that's so much more like I am. Like, I need that kind of physical touch and that attention and that love. And the other cat is much more like Bob, where it's not that she doesn't, but it's kind of, she needs to warm up to that idea. It kind of needs to be on her own terms. She's much more classic cat. So even just that permission to be ourselves and our personalities and really getting to know ourselves and not feel like we have to be anybody else. This is just who I am. I don't need to apologize for the fact that I would like more cuddles and pets and, affection than he does. And so even that has been just this interesting lesson about self through nature and animals.
I love that. And I'm so glad you're presencing this word permission, because I want to go into how permission is a big thing when we start talking about tapping into intuition, whether that's our own or coming to someone for guidance. So what I want to start with is, let's introduce you and tell us a little bit about your work in the world, and tell us about your connection to intuition and divination.
Yeah, I loved everything that you said. So a lot of what I say will probably mirror or piggyback that a little bit. It was so articulate in the way that you equate intuition with decision making. Because I think growing up, I used to be so confused with feelings and intuition. I couldn't tell the difference. Like, I feel things all the time. I don't know if it's coming from here, down here, up here, here. I hear things and I feel things, and so it was just really confusing to me to pull apart which was intuition, which was feelings, and also being a Pisces super sensey, connected to all things esoteric and all of that. I just I got into this place of, again, not sure if I really know myself in that way, because I keep hearing all these things about having, and that everyone has intuition.
Right.
But it wasn't until I really got into astrology to know myself, and a way to know others as well. And then started reading tarot about 8 years ago, I think. And I definitely come from a business mind. I went to school for business. I did consulting for a number of years. I was project coordinator. I did corporate America. I very much have that side of my brain very, very well developed. And I relied on that side for so long as the go-to. And then it wasn't until I started reading tarot about 8 years ago that I found that through the divination tool, I honed my intuition. Because every time I was doing a reading for somebody, I was having to interpret the cards. And I found myself leaning less on the actual cards and more on what I was picking up myself, and the voices and the feelings, and then just offering that to the person and saying, you know, this is what I see, this is what I feel, this is what I hear. How true is that for you? And right, and then it became a conversation between the two of us. And what I found a lot of times was the divination combined with my intuition was really a confirmation for their intuition.
Yeah.
And that's what I found a lot of the time, because the biggest feedback I still get today is, oh, that totally confirms what I've been feeling. That totally confirms what I've been thinking, or the what I'm leaning towards in my life, or where I want to go. And so it's cool for me because it kind of takes, you think it would be this big thing, and actually it just brings you back to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just this kind of myth that there is around things like tarot and oracle things and divination that, yes, it's connecting you to something else, but actually I think the purpose is actually to connect us back to ourselves. And so what you were saying about the helping us to make decisions and figure out the flavor of your intuition, is really cool. And I love what you were saying even around that, of how does your intuition speak to you? Right. Because it could have so many different flavors. And I know mine will change. It's not just one. You might have a prominent one, but you might hear things, you might feel things, you might just get a sense. It could be a smell, whatever it is, it might change. That's also the fun thing about intuition for me. I think it's like the more you open up to the different ways it can speak to you, you can access it. It's like just learning different languages. Yeah. You know, you might be more fluent in English, but once you start practicing Spanish more, like that might come to you, or you can at least understand it or hear it. So yeah, I think with my past, so like I said, I've been reading tarot for about 8 years now, but it was more on a personal level, or just for fun. It was just for fun. I loved it. I loved the cards. I loved the meanings of the cards. But it wasn't until I started reading it that I really noticed how much it was serving, how much it was healing, how much it was giving guidance for other people. And I don't know how many times I would have people crying during their readings, and I'm over here thinking like, this is fun, this is a party favor, and just realizing time and time again it was just hitting nerves over and over again, and it was running so much deeper than I even thought that it was. It was just a party favor for me. And so once I allowed tarot to come into my practice, so I've been doing coaching and relationship coaching for about 5-6 years now. Once I kind of opened the doors for tarot to come in and really serve in that way too, it's just been this really, really potent, powerful thing, because now I have this tool that helps not only me make decisions in my life, but it really is helping other people make decisions in their lives too. Because that's one of my favorite things to do with tarot, actually, is let's look at what's up for you. What are the things you're juggling? What are the things you're wanting clarity around? Let's throw some cards down. I can tell you what I see. We can talk about what it's bringing up for you. We can dive in deeper, and it really is this really fun way to flush things out. And kind of pull everything else away that's not important, like the filler. It kind of takes the filler and the noise away, and we can distill down what's the most important thing here. And again, connect back to someone's intuition around what they've already been thinking and feeling. They just either didn't give themselves the permission to acknowledge that that might be true, or didn't feel confident enough, like in their own knowing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you touched on so much there. I love it. That permission piece is so huge.
Yeah.
And there's so many different angles we could dive into it, but I want to start with the piece of, I hear so often people saying, well, first they're saying I don't have a connection. I can't do it myself because I don't really have the connection, and I don't really know how I get information, and so I can't trust what I do get. And then once you get far enough into the past, and you help them see the way in which they've been getting information all along, they have that light bulb moment where they're like, oh yeah, no, that happens to me all the time.
All the time, yeah.
I know what it's all about, but that's not what that's not the real thing. That's the thing that somebody else does to get information.
Yeah.
Do you run into that with people when they're coming to you, for support on guidance or decision making, that they're also struggling with that externalization? Like, that's something someone else does well, but somehow I'm disconnected from this sense of knowing.
Oh, definitely. And I think I saw that way before I even did tarot, just in my own coaching.
Yeah.
I would notice that. And it's a little bit of that thing where when you're in the bubble, it's really hard to see because you're in the bubble, and it's like breathing to you. You don't think that it's that special,
right?
Or it's that unique. It just is something that I do. I didn't know that this was something that nobody else felt, or nobody else thought, or nobody else does naturally. So I do. I think I find that a lot, especially when we don't really talk about intuition and what it looks like. And, so again, in that same way that I struggled with that piece around, I just thought that they were just my feelings.
Right.
I didn't know that was intuition.
Exactly. And the way some people are like, I didn't know that everyone didn't see in maps, or I didn't know that everyone didn't get number signs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or I didn't know that everybody would have someone's name pop into their head and then they get a call from them. And no, that doesn't happen to everybody. That doesn't happen to everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that I see that, and which is why I love this kind of environment of shining the light on it and educating around intuition and divination, because now you know, and the more you know, like, it leads to those kind of aha moments, and it makes it more second nature than something, like you said, that's really far removed and is somebody else. Like, I didn't want to admit the fact that I was psychic again, and I'm still doing this, because when people would say, like, you're psychic, I'm like, no, I'm not. Psychic people do X, Y, Z. Psychic people, talk to ghosts, or psychic people, they on command can download things, and that doesn't happen to me. It just happens randomly. And, so there were just so many things even I had as far as preconceived notions of what intuition and psychic abilities and how to even read tarot. I mean, even that, I was like, oh no, I just read the book. I don't really, there's nothing different about the way that I do it. It's just very kind of logical still.
Yeah.
And,
No, I love it. And the other thing that really struck me about your work as being different and unique, and an expression of this merging of intuition and divination I personally enjoy so much, is that piece you touched on of the co-creation. I hadn't really experienced, we didn't really have a session, but we had an interaction that it did involve you doing that pulse. How does this feel for you? What does it bring up for you? And that in itself, we could go on forever, because it activated so many things. It activated connection between women, how we weave our intuitions to get a bigger picture together, how there is this acceptance and permission granting, but now across the aisle, not only just granting it to the other person or inviting them in, but granting it to yourself, and seeing the importance of both together. And how you were then so artfully able to help guide a person through that. I've come seeking, I have a question. The awareness in itself is a big step of what the question is. Looking at what's in the field, looking at what it brings up for you, for me, how we weave that together. All of that, as you said, bringing us closer and closer to understanding ourselves better, understanding our own guidance better, getting closer to those answers. How did that transpire for you, that you really got into that exchange, that inquiry? Was that modeled for you, or is that just because it's a different way than many people, a different energy many people bring in?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think, and if I had to look back, I think it's still, um, and I love that you're bringing that up because it's just such what's the word? It's something that I kind of knew was different, but it's so lovely to see that mirrored back because, again, I just do what I do. I don't notice it as different, right?
Right.
And so I was going to say I thank life coaching for this.
Okay.
However, I remember, again, chicken or the egg, because I was a life coach before I went to life coach training.
Right.
In the way that I work in the world. But I remember just even in my tarot readings, when I was an amateur and I was just doing it for my friends, most of the time they were doing the talking. It was, I would tell them what I saw, and then I would just kind of sit back and see what was coming up. And then we would do this dance. And I would ask questions because I'm a naturally inquisitive person and I want to know. And I've always had this kind of feeling around it's our job to teach people to fish instead of giving them the fish for them, right? I'm just a guide. I'm just helping to facilitate your own answers and your own knowing and your own wisdom. And so I think it's just been, and then tarot and coaching started doing this dance together with me, where the more that I learned in coaching, the better my tarot readings would get. The more readings that I did, I feel like the better I got with my intuition with my coaches or with my clients in coaching. And so it's, I think my favorite part about what I do is that we go in and it feels a little bit like Alice in Wonderland. Like we're about to go down a rabbit hole. I have no idea where we're going to be on the other end of it, but it's you and me, and we get to go in there together. And like you said, I ask questions, you ask questions, and we get to co-create that space. But it's really magical because I have no idea what's going to come out. I have no idea what's going to come out of you. I have no idea what the cards are going to say. I have no idea what my intuition is going to download in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's why it makes it so fun and also really potent and powerful because it is to me a dialogue. And now I know that it's different in the sense that I preface it for people. That this isn't like a normal tarot reading. I'm not just going to pull cards and talk at you for an hour.
Right.
We're going to talk. It's a discussion. I want you to ask questions. I want you to let me know if you don't understand something. I want to know that by the end of this, you've gotten all of the answers you've been wanting and more from our time together.
I love that. And I love that what you're also modeling on the meta level is how someone can take that into their own practice, that you can start the dialogue. It doesn't have to be you ask your question and you sit in silence and you expect this external thing to happen, that you can ask, you can wiggle your way forward, you can spread all the cards out, you can look for what's coming up, or, go for a walk then and see what comes up on the walk. Like it's really becomes this really beautiful canvas, this painting, this way of interacting and walking in the world. You bring up a question, though, for me that, there's this continuum of how we access intuition or divination or we don't. And on one side, we have this society that's very analytical, that consulting world you described, that this reality we live in, where it's like, that's the other stuff, this is what needs to drive the show. I don't tap into that at all. And then maybe a little in from that, there's those of us who are like, maybe, okay, I dabble in that. Maybe once a year I'll do it because it's fun. Maybe then even somewhere in the middle, there's this space of, I have a regular relationship with them. And I appreciate the give and take of the guidance that I get at periodic times. But then there's also this other end of the spectrum where we can get to a space where we are either relying on an expert or a guide instead of our own tuition, or even, I don't know who hasn't dabbled in divination or oracles in some way, who hasn't at least once in their life been on the spectrum of, I didn't like that answer. Let me ask again. I didn't like that answer. Let me ask again. And so then there's that other end of the spectrum where we start to really
rely really heavily and
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say, actually, I'll only work with a person once every 6 months because I really want them to be doing their own process. And then I know
Yeah.
that there's people who are like, let's draw a card every day and use that as guidance. What's your own personal philosophy about when do you go to seek information, either externally or within yourself? How many times do you ask the question, and what does that
I
really say about
know.
our journey?
I know. And I laughed because I remember there was a specific period of time where I told myself I'm not going to pull any cards for myself. I'm not going to do any of my own readings. I'm not, because I didn't want to rely so heavily on that, and B, there's a way in which that we can be biased, right? Like you were saying, like, I don't like that answer, or I'm going to interpret this to mean,
Right.
that actually what I think, like what I want it to say versus what it's actually wanting to say, right? And so I think like anything, like any relationship, I start to just feel if I'm becoming dependent, because there's that codependency, and then there's an interdependency on we're working together, and it's where I'm not relying so heavily, like you said, that I can't even make my own decisions. I can't make a decision unless I go to something. And so now my way of doing that is, if I don't get a strong hit myself, I always ask myself first and see what's happening. And if I don't get a strong hit where it feels like a yes, then I'll go to something else or someone else and say, can you help me? Because it isn't as clear. It's not as strong for me. And then I can have someone kind of help me roll around options and to see if maybe what they're bringing up, or what the cards are bringing up, does feel more like a yes, because now I have more things to look at. Where maybe if I was going to myself and it's confusing, it's because there's a lot that I am not that connected to, or I haven't seen the whole picture yet.
Yep. Oh, I love that. So when we talk about alchemy, this is obviously one of my favorite topics. It's why the Mystic Society came into being. This concept, for me, what alchemy really is this opportunity to create by combining, create by mixing. It's part of the magic of the medicine wheel for me, because each of those energies and directions brings in its own magic. It's part of the beauty of having one foot in the new paradigm world and one in the mainstream corporate world, is that alchemy that comes together. And you have created a business platform on a fundamental alchemy. And first, I want to touch on this tarot and astrology, this combination, and hear a little bit about that, how that came to be. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about how the love and the sex component came in as well, because obviously it's such an important human factor in how we tap into our intuition and our guides. But can we start with Taroscope and how that came to be, and how that came together?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll just start by saying, I mean, since I was 18, I've been fascinated, or even before that, my best friend and I still remember we would go to the bookstore, and the first thing we would, just like gravitating to the New Age section, right? And pulling astrology books, and again, learning about myself. And so I definitely know a lot about my sign, but the more I would talk to people and read about other signs, and definitely the love part, anybody that I was interested in or dating, like learn all about the Taurus because he's in my life now, or learn all about the Gemini. So, and then it just extended to that of just really seeing how much it helped me get to know the people in my life better, my family, my friends, the people that I was dating. And so I never in a million years would have thought to combine those two at all. I loved astrology, and I loved tarot. I loved business. I loved coaching, and so it did. There was so much of that kind of was separate, but it was last year that, and I loved Susan Miller. I mean, I would religiously, I've been, reading her forecasts since over 15 years, probably, religiously. I would read her horoscopes, and I would just love that whole world. And so, yeah, it wasn't until last year, probably like around August, where I got this kind of, again, download
Yeah.
of, I should pull a card for people's signs. And then I had, so maybe this is a kind of a lesson for everyone when you have that moment of, oh my God, I just got to download the smartest person in the world. And so I had that thought. And then I think it was that same day I saw somebody else do the same thing. They posted about how they pulled cards for signs. And I thought, oh my God, it's not as special. And then I thought, why would I do it? Other people are doing it in the world. And it did it. It kind of had this moment of like crushing my dreams around thinking that I just had the like best idea in the whole world and it was just going to revolutionize everything. and I remember being with two of my girlfriends, one a hypnotherapist and another one a makeup artist, and I was sitting here just like in my little pity party around, I was going to do this thing, it was going to be the best thing since sliced bread, but someone else is doing it. And my makeup artist friend said, Natalie, how many makeup artists are there in the world? And I think it was just that example of, right, there's 5 million makeup artists in the world. Like, do you think if I really cared about other makeup artists, I would be doing what I'm doing? And she's amazing. Right. And it was just this beautiful lesson in continue to follow that, because it came to you for a reason. And the more that I spoke of it, and so I did, I put it out there, and just from the very first month, I got such beautiful feedback. And it just kind of grew and it grew and it grew. Yeah. And so I get to use my knowledge of the signs and my knowledge of tarot, and how much I love how tarot has become for me such a tool for personal development, which I really believe that was not probably initial intention. I think the initial intention of tarot was more a game when it was first created, but in the early 1900s, it really started to become used as a personal self-development. Like, this is how you get to know yourself tool.
Sure.
And so tapping back into that. And so now tarot scopes for me is actually an alchemy of 3 things. It's the astrology, it's the tarot, and it's also the coaching and the personal development piece.
Oh, I love that. I think that's another reason why your work feels so different in the world, because you really have that layer, that journey piece, that personal development piece in there. Let's use this not so much to have this external answer come as part of this process, but instead let's use it as a leaning into knowing ourselves more deeply.
Yeah. This is a guide of like, this is the energy that you're playing with right now, or that's hovering around you. So how do you really tap into that in such a way that it becomes powerful? Yeah. You're not a victim to it. You take it, you're responsible. Like, that's the magician piece and the high priestess piece, right? You're taking what is already around you and you're alchemizing it and making it into something so much more amazing and beautiful and powerful than you could have before. Instead of just like allowing things to happen to you, you're creating them.
Yep. I love that. Well, so another beautiful layer and piece of the alchemy is this love and sex piece. And I think sometimes people look at the Mystic Society, they're looking at, the guests that I'm bringing there, and like, how come there's always this undercurrent of love or sex or all this? But the guiding factors of the themes really for this year, and this is not only from my own, creation of the Mystics and my own download, but also very much the energies of the year 2015 and everything that's in the field for us, but they're money, magic, and meaning. And interestingly enough, when you look at those and you look at, well, where does creation come from? Where does money flow? Where does this sense of purpose and feel? All of these tend to be lower chakra things that are going on for us. Yeah. And so how can we have this discussion of business alchemy without having a discussion of what's up in the field in terms of our sexual energies, our love, our identity, our sense of how we, and obviously we're getting into the full range here. But I would just love to hear about how, because I know this isn't a destination for you either. This is a weaving process that you're in and bringing in. You have a new podcast that I'd love for you to share, but bringing in your expertise on the relationships, love, sex side, and how they really are so vital and fundamental to this conversation in a broader context.
Yeah, and I'll start with the story of, since we are talking about intuition and divination, when I met my current boyfriend last year, we were at a conference, and it was when I met you. So that conference was just freaking magical and powerful. Seriously, it just was. Oh my goodness. Like the people that I met there were just such soul strong connections. And it wasn't a lot, but that's how I roll. I don't go around collecting a whole posse. It's like usually a core people that are just like in my life for life. But I saw him around and didn't think anything, but when he was with us, he's a brother of a friend of mine, or a new friend of mine. But I just started having those feelings, and again, I was like, is this intuition or is this feeling? Because I just have these thoughts, and I just keep getting these things of like, this person's an important person in your life. And so the first piece to that I've learned with intuition is don't try and guess what it's saying. Just follow the flow. Right. So instead of me assuming I knew what that hit was, like that curiosity and that intention, I thought, let me just get to know him instead of already putting him in a box or trying to assume what my intuition is saying. Mm-hmm. So that was the first process of let me just get to know him as a person. Maybe he's just my next best friend. Who knows, right? But that intuition was clear of important person. Sure. Different than you've ever experienced before. And then I just had that, and like I said, I was on one of my stints of don't read cards for yourself, but I thought, oh, but I'm so curious. I'm so curious what the cards say. And so I did. I allowed myself the guilty indulgence of pulling some cards for myself around it. And we hadn't even hung out in person yet. I think we may have had a phone call in between, just a kind of getting to know you, more business related phone call. And so I just said, okay, I'm just going to pull a couple of cards. So I pulled one. Okay, I said, tell me about him. And it was the King of Wands. And said, tell me about me and the situation. It was the Queen of Wands. Mm-hmm. And then I said, okay, tell me about us. And it was the Star card. And the Star card is just like your biggest wishes and dreams coming true. And so when I saw all of this, it scared me. Mm-hmm. Because literally what the cards were saying was, he's the king, you're the queen, and this relationship is like the dream relationship you've always wanted. And it scared me, and I did that thing again of, oh, I don't know if I want to lean on that, right? I don't want to depend on those answers. Right. Let me still stay open. And I mean, but it's been true. It literally is my dream relationship. And even now looking back at, because wands represent fire and passion and creativity and sex. And so all the things that you're talking about, those are the wands. That's that energy, that fire energy. And not only do we have that, but now we're working together around those topics. Like we have become a bit of a power duo, like a power couple in that way of wanting to help other people, couples around relationships and sex and having the most amazing relationships you can have. And so I think it is important. It is like anything to not pay attention to all sides of your life and make sure that they're all whole and vibrant and amazing, is going to take away ultimately from the other parts of your life. So even though there are times that I think focusing on love and relationship, I guess the doubting part of me feels that that's trite sometimes. Mm-hmm. But then other times I realize how, because that's our foundation. The people in our lives, the relationships in our lives, that's our foundation. If we don't feel super connected and supported and loved and held, it makes it harder to go out in the world and do the things that we're supposed to do to have those passion pieces really come to life, right? And so now that I'm focusing on that, it helps so much to, again, use tarot for that too. I've had so many people that come and just like asking about their relationships, and because again, they're confused or they don't know, or they're not ready to hear the answers or whatever it is, or permission to take the steps that they need to take for their relationships. And so we'll pull cards around the people they're dating or their marriage or whatever it is. I've also done it around sex and sexuality. It's like, what are my blocks? Like, why can't I open up fully? And I have found that the more open you are in your sexuality and sex and desire, the more open you are to your creativity. And I haven't found that it works the other way around, where like the more creative I am, the more the more I am okay sexually. No, it doesn't work like that. The more open you are in your sexuality, the more it fuels the creativity. And so it's like, and it makes sense. We all come from sex.
That's a little bit of the scary answer that I'm seeing. I think scary because of my own, my own lens on it, or social taboo, or, that it's not the mystic sex society, it's the mystic society life and business alchemy. But the truth is, I'm also seeing this thing of the more that flow is happening, especially around your own knowing yourself and comfortable with your own alignment around your sexuality and your love, the more the money flows, the more the way you're describing creativity flows into that space, finances flow through that space, and so does your purpose and your passion. So sometimes people I've experienced in this conversation can very quickly throw up a block. Either I am or I'm not in a relationship. So it doesn't apply to me because I've already checked that box, or I don't have anyone in that box. How do you respond to that? And because I know a lot of this starts with the self. It's either self-care. How do we model love for the self, passion through the self, purpose through the self? How do you respond to those questions around, this doesn't relate to me because?
No, and I think it's true, because even the year that I had the most sexual opening, I was single. And now it's a different level of it because I'm with a partner, because you can only do so much work on your own. And then, it's like anything in relationship and business, with your clients, with your, with your budding business, whatever it is, like there's self, and then there's in relationship to X, whatever X is. And like you said, to me, it's, what is that relationship with self? What is that relationship with you and your sexuality? Period. Start there. Let's look at that relationship first. And then let's look at your relationship with you and sexuality and someone else. Or you and love and someone else. And even that sometimes, doesn't split apart. They're kind of, they're also in a relationship together, love and sex. But because everything is a relationship, and that's how I like to look at it, is doesn't matter where you are in the timeline. It doesn't matter what your relationship status is. You're always in relationship to your sex, to your love, to your money, to your partner, to your business, to yourself. You're always in relationship. How's that relationship going?
Oh, I love it. And it just comes back around to that initial grounding topic of knowing yourself more deeply and connection to self, and how intuition and divination and this concept of the fact that love is a really powerful lens through which to look at those two can inform your money.
Well, and I mean, I heard a really interesting talk, and I've had it happen a couple of times from this, both from, and I'm just going to go there, like, whether you're masturbating or whether you're having sex and you're orgasming, but there's a way in which your brain shuts down in a beautiful way. You're connected to your body, but there is this other place where you're connected to almost the divine, and your channeling and your intuition in those moments are it's so much stronger, and the vessel is just, this channel is clearer and more potent. And another way, to me, sex and intuition, oh man, like there's a whole other level that we haven't even tapped into there,
absolutely.
That is really cool to watch, just even for myself, the more that I'm learning, where it's like, oh man, I just get so much more. It's stronger. The messages are clearer. It comes to me faster. And again, the creativity opening with myself and my business and what I want to create in the world. Amazing.
Well, I see the hour approaching, and I know I have a couple of questions that have come in, but I also want to just kind of turn it to you for a moment to say, in light of what you see, those of us who have come to you to work with you, or you've coached, or, just in general, the topic in your field around intuition and divination, if you could say one thing to everybody out there about how they access or what their relationship is to divination, or the thing that you secretly wish you could tell, so many of those clients, what's the thing that's holding us back the most, or what's the thing that you would really love to pull the veil back on?
I think what I literally tell everybody, and it's like, I feel like a broken record, is that intuition is a muscle.
Yeah.
And unless you practice it, you won't strengthen it. And so even if you think it's crazy, just pay attention that there's two steps. Like, you pay attention to it. Okay, your ear is getting better for it, but then you have to act on it. And so homework for everybody is give yourself 1 week where you pay attention to and follow everything that just comes to you.
Yeah.
And then you can test it out for yourself. It's like research. Do your research around intuition.
Love that.
Follow it and then pay attention to what happens. That day that you said, oh, I should, take this freeway instead of this freeway.
Yeah.
See what happens. Or that day that so-and-so pops into your head and you think, oh, I should reach out, and you don't listen to it. Reach out, see what happens. And so it's that piece. It's like we all have it. We just, A, don't listen to it, or B, don't act on it.
Okay. Thank you. That's so beautiful. So I had two questions that came in from people who couldn't be on the call live, and I wanted presence here. And one of them, I have such an image of her too. She's saying, I really want to be doing this. I really do. I have cards. I see people doing it. I really want to. And I start to do it, and it's like the fraud alert is what she was saying comes in. And it's just like, I don't know if I can, I don't really know if I'm connected, was basically her question. And on the one hand, you've so lovingly guided us through everyone is connected, and it's about building this muscle. But if the person out there listening is the person like this person who inquired, who's saying, where do I really start? Like, in this moment with these cards, what's your recommendation for that first step?
Yeah. I think those are the times I'm so grateful for all of my friends that let me practice on them. I'm so grateful because they gave me feedback.
Yeah.
I was able to frame it in such a way that it took the pressure off of me. Said, let me just practice on you. We'll just see what happens. I haven't really done this that much. And then we would play in that way where I would just, and again, I used the book. I used the book for a long time.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't until a year ago that I didn't not refer to the Tarot Bible basically for the meaning. And even that, like, it's okay to give yourself a jumping off place. You don't have to go right to jumping off of the high dive. You can jump off of the low dive. It doesn't need to, you're not trying to prove to anyone anything. Give yourself that space to play and have that beginner's mind and be a student and practice and learn. And then you can get feedback from your friends. Like, how was that? Do you think that was accurate for you? How was it hearing from me around that kind of stuff? And just like ask questions, test it out, ask questions, like make it fun for you.
Yeah, take the pressure off of it.
Yeah. And then when you have enough experience, and then after doing it for a while or getting the feedback, then probably from there you'll build that confidence around, like, I know what I'm doing, or I feel like I know what I'm doing because I've had enough people tell me, like, your stuff is spot on.
Okay. So the second question came from someone who's been doing it a little bit longer and who has been not only using tools for herself, but has started to use them in the context of her clients. And she said, the piece I'm uncomfortable with is when something comes up that I don't feel comfortable telling them. Either it's something that looks intense or they might not be ready to hear. I was relating to this question myself. And I love your approach of really entering into the dialogue. But there have been times myself where yeah, you feel a little on edge about what you're interpreting based on what you
Yeah,
see.
right. And I think this goes back to what I'm grateful for coaching for, which is they teach you the art of blurting, but then not, again, making meaning of it or trying to guess what that means for them. And so in those moments, I will literally say, this is what the card's interpretation is. What does that mean for you? And I'll give them the range because sure, like, whether it's the death card and I still notice myself kind of flinching and holding back because again, I'm trying to prepare myself for how they're going to take it.
Sure.
But to remove all expectations and judgment and be as objective as possible and literally just say, well, this is the card that came up. This is what it normally means. And does that land for you at all? Does that relate to you at all? And then just starting the dialogue and removing any kind of box that it needs to be in. Because, again, we can interpret it a certain way, and there's, even when a card means a certain thing, there's still 5 different ways you can interpret it. But again, kind of putting it back to them and just, and maybe you need to preface it sometimes of, this may be a little harsh to hear, so, do you want me to tell you what I see? And getting permission from that place, because like you said, if there's an intuition in us that's saying, I don't know if they're ready to hear it, okay, maybe honor that. And ask them and get that permission too. Like, can I be honest about what I see here?
Love
and
that.
so that's another way you can play with it too. And again, that's a coaching thing of getting permission from someone before really like diving in deeper.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. We're up at the hour here. I'm so grateful for you joining us today and for all you're contributing to the Mystic Society and beyond. Excited to have you come and speak to the mastermind as well.
I know.
Yeah, thank you again. Tell us where we can find you online. There are different ways we could interact with your work in the world. We'll include it in the page, of course, as well. But tell us.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think my main online home is nataliethecoach.com. And so even there, you can find some of the other things that I'm doing. But that's where you'll find work on my tarot and coaching, and that's where I post my monthly tarot scopes.
Which are great, and you have to go check out because I love.
Yeah, I love them. I mean, and they were just so great that they inspired the weekly version, which Lindsay got to test out when I did a pilot for it, because I have a paid subscription service where you can get a weekly one. Every week you get a card pulled for yourself.
Yep. Incredibly powerful and so helpful. I love it.
Yeah, I still get an email every week from someone saying how just like right on it is, or just nailed it, or it helped them navigate their week. So those are some of the pieces. We started doing love magic retreats too, where we're combining Reiki and ritual work and hypnotherapy and coaching and tarot and all of that stuff to really help women around their love lives, in relationship or not, or single or not. And then I'm starting a project with my boyfriend, and it's called Sex the Podcast. And that's where we're having conversations around sex and desire and relationship and all of that gamut, like that umbrella gets to be explored and played with there too. So
love
those
it.
are the 2 places. That's launching soon, sexthepodcast.com. But yeah, you can find it all at Natalie the Coach.
Great. Thanks so much. And I just want to encourage everyone again, some of the key takeaways, I think, and Natalie, I want you to jump in too, but really allowing yourself to get to know yourself better via these tools and to trust where you are in the journey, meet yourself right where you are and build that muscle, as Natalie calls it. I love this piece about doing your research. So start with something kind of, it doesn't have to be the high dive, like you said. It can be, start small and start to play with it and see what comes through over the next 5 days or 2 weeks or months or however, so that you can start to understand your own gifts and your own the way your intuition speaks. And then, just holding you up as a model again too, Natalie, just look for your own personal alchemy. Part of what is making Natalie's work so potent and so magical in this world is because she has done this this work, this piece of the journey of really ushering in her passions, her interests, her skills, and bringing them together. So the alchemy of coaching and tarot and astrology and now love and sex is what brings this unbelievably beautiful, unique, vital piece forward into creation. So be looking for your own alchemy as well and what your own unique gifts and maybe the areas that you haven't owned or brought forward, and that can sometimes be the piece that you've been resisting, but also the missing piece to fully bring you into alignment as well.
And I'm going to second that last piece because I resisted doing tarot professionally for a long time, and it wasn't until a friend Sally kept pushing that I finally listened. And even still the work around sex, it's scary. It's freaking scary to go in that direction. Who would willingly do that, but it is their passions, their loves, their things that I talk about and again do, whether someone paid me for it or not, I would do it. So definitely paying attention to those pieces is encouraged.
I love that so much. That courage piece is huge. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you everyone who came live to the call and also those who are watching it and recording, and know that we're sending lots of love and light your way, and we will see you next time. And thank you again, my love.
Thanks, Lindsay. Love you. I love you, Mystics.
Love you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. We'll see you next time, and you'll find the recording in the Mystic Society in Simplero. Thanks again. See you next time.